guys? It's Shekinah, aka the Purpose Therapist, and this is Journey to Joy. So today's conversation is basically another part of our series that we were talking about, helping us understand what some of like the blockages might be to joy, or at least from my perspective, and things that I myself have had to navigate to be able to maintain and keep my joy. So here we go. Let's get into it. Today's conversation is all about relationships. So let's see. Relationship conversation is always complicated because, all the things, emotions, feelings, and things of that sort. But there's also another real part of it that helps me to kind of like be anchored through it. And it's understanding that at the end of the day, how are you feeling after you leave a space, right? So what do I mean by that? I mean, like, how often are you taking inventory for like if you feel full, empty, depleted, or do you feel restored, rejuvenated, inspired? Where do you land when it comes to your relationships with other people and when it comes to your interactions with them? One of the telltale signs to help us understand if whether or not a relationship is adding value or taking away value is by being able to identify that part. Like, how am I feeling when I leave? And if we're not taking time to take inventory of that part, that'll mess us up. So for me personally, I don't think I really understood the nature of or importance of friendships as much as I did when I moved, until I moved. Like, I have beautiful, beautiful relationships with people growing up. Like, my friends across the street ended up being like low-key my brothers and my sisters. And so like my church family, all that stuff, I was surrounded by love and care often. There were some like very tumultuous things that took place that we will talk about another time, but one of the things that I really appreciated though and loved was how unconditional my relationship with some of my friends were, and some of them are people that I have relationships with like to this day. When I moved though, it was like having to like reform all these relationships in my teenage years was very interesting, and then really redefining what relationships are supposed to look like for me. Like, what is a good one? What is a bad one? What is one that I need to stay away from? What are boundaries? What are all these things? I didn't know anything about it. So when the issue is that sometimes when you become super dependent on someone else to kind of bring you some type of identity or understanding of yourself, or you depend on people like for emotional and your emotional support, your happiness, to fill voids for you, all these things, it turns into a very like toxic situation where you are the way that you're sustaining it is with you sacrificing yourself instead of being able to maintain an understanding of who you are and what that looks like while you're maintaining these relationships. Relationships should not be one where we're like sacrificing who we are or sacrificing what our values are, sacrificing our truths to be able to maintain. That's just not how that's supposed to work. It's just not. No, that's not something that will bring us like a result that we can be proud of. So it's like, okay, Shekinah, I hear you, relationships can be bad, but like, how can I identify those things? How do I rectify that? Have you asked? So my favorite thing to do now, I don't want to say favorite thing to do, but like, a necessary thing I do is audits, right? I do relationship audits, and relationship audits have helped me to be able to make sure that the places I'm surrounded with, the people that I'm surrounded by, are consistent places of joy instead of like pain and irritation and feeling drained and things like that, right? So when I say a relationship audit, I literally mean go down the people that you spend, like, take the last 3 weeks, right? Write down the people that you spent time with in the last month, 3 to 4 weeks, and gauge for yourself from like 1 to 10. How did you feel with each of these people? What did they leave you feeling with? Did they leave you feeling full? Did they leave you feeling supported? Did they leave you feeling let down? Did they leave you feeling disrespected? Like, identifying those things. And then based off of that is how you determine how much more time you're going to spend with these people, right? You want to make sure that the people that you're spending time with, the people that you're investing your energy with in that way, are people that are adding value and pouring back into you. And that was a lesson that was so hard for me to learn, and it's still a lesson I learned to this day. Everybody don't deserve to be in your space like that. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why they don't is because your joy is so valuable. It can be infectious, right? But in the same way it can be infectious, it can be infectious. People can do things and say things that can disrupt the way that you show up, and disrupt the way that you feel about yourself, and disrupt the way that you give and pour into other people. All that stuff comes from how you are being able to maintain your joy and your peace around other. Like, people can suck that stuff from you. It can really happen. So you got to make sure that you're identifying like how much time am I going to spend? What does that look like? And I'm not saying throw the whole thing away. I read this book. It's an amazing book. It's called Relational to Intelligence by Darius Daniels. And in this book, he talks a lot about understanding people's positions and placing them in different spaces, right? The reason why we want to make sure that we do that, which I thought was so powerful, is because if not, you're going to waste so much of your time trying to make somebody that should be in this category fit into this one, right? And so the way I've been able to break it down in my mind is this. There's like stages, right? Let's say you have 5 packages. You have like the package number 1, that's the person that's like your confidant. They're closest to you. You tell them everything, your wins, your losses, they right there in the trenches with you, right? And then you have like a 5 that might be somebody that you maybe like say happy birthday to on Facebook occasionally or something like that. Or you have some type of like relationship where you see them as love. It's like no disrespect, but y'all not really that close, right? And then you have the 2, the 3, and the 4 where you gauge that in between. Those audits that I'm talking about help you understand where those people are supposed to go on that spectrum. And then once you understand where they go on that spectrum, you act accordingly. Like there's some pressures that I'm not going to put on a 1 versus a 5 because the person that's at a 1 doesn't deserve that same amount of attention or the same. I'm not saying they don't deserve the same amount of attention, but a person that's a 1, like y'all click tight. You understand what's going on. Like they are your roots, right? A person that's a 5, you based off of whatever situation that might have taken place, I can't be as close to them as I used to be. I have to regulate and be a little bit more cognizant of like how I'm spending time with them and what that means. So when we are looking at the long list of different ways that we can like identify what our relationships are supposed to look like, that's a key. That's a key part. You have to take inventory first, do an audit first. How do they make me feel? Right? And then based on how they make me feel is like how I'm gonna create that spectrum. And so then while we're navigating that place, another thing that we want to identify for ourselves is like at the core of how we show up, what does it look like for us to take that information and start applying it? Not being so hard on ourselves about like, saying that, oh, if they're a 1, they got to stay a 1 forever. If they're a 5, they got to stay a 5 forever. No, it fluctuates. Like let yourself be in that fluid space of like maintaining these relationships. The reason why that part is so important is because when you have, like, for example, as a therapist, there's like some days where I'm drained. I don't have anything left in me, right? And if I don't set correct boundaries and understand how my relationships with certain people work, I can be in another situation where I'm depleted. I can be in another situation where I'm disconnected. I can be in a situation where somebody's not able to truly give me what I need in reciprocity wise, right? So we want to make sure that as we're pouring into other people, that we're able to get that stuff back. And when we need to be poured into, we're connected to the people that are allowing us to do that. We're not connected to people that are like snatching from us and taking from our cup. Sometimes we need to be in company of people that like, because we need to be poured into too. So it's like when we're talking about this process of taking inventory, and we're talking about this process of understanding ourselves, and we're talking about this process of like navigating, like doing a legit relationship audit, it can help us be of service in ways we could have never imagined. The conversation today is all about joy, right? And if we're talking about maintaining our joy, one of the key things is going to be is like understanding the reservoir of our joy. Like where does it come from? How do I get poured into? What gives us service? What makes me feel good? How does that help me? And then relationships, how do they attach to that space? Are they giving to that joy? Are they taking away from it? Right? And I'm not saying throw all your friends away because that's not what this is about. But it is about making sure that if I can't talk to you besides 15 minutes on Saturdays because that's the day I don't have to work and I can give you that type of attention, we need to understand that and know that, right? And then while we're building relationships with others, we have to make sure that those relationships are reflective of the type of relationship we want to have with ourselves. When we don't appreciate ourselves, when we don't love ourselves, when we don't care for ourselves, it makes it a lot more difficult for us to be in spaces with people who are doing that. We are consistently always teaching people how to treat us. So when we're not taking care for us, when we're not pouring into us, when we're not giving into us, the reservoir goes lower and lower and lower and lower, and the expectation goes lower and lower and lower and lower for how other people should treat us, right? So this could really be a 2-part thing because I'm talking about like the general aspect of relationships, and we could really talk about romantic relationships as a whole other thing together. But for me, this was imperative. I can't tell you how I didn't realize connection to people and connection to spaces was the thing that was keeping me in a space of like depression and grief and anxiety and sadness. I could not tell you. And so then as soon as I started to reevaluate the amount of time that I allowed people to be in my space, that was just as soon as the joy started to be maintained on a different level. My peace started to be maintained on a different level, and my understanding of myself started to be maintained on a different level. So that's my tidbit for today. If that was helpful for you, please let me know. Again, do that audit. Okay, go through and identify for yourself like what those things need to look like, and how your friends should look, and how they make you feel when you leave them, right? And then after you do that audit, start to understand what level they're going to be at. Are they at a level 1 to 5, right? Identify that part. And then after that, execute. Do what you need to do for yourself, okay? This is Shekinah, aka the Purpose Therapist, and I hope this was helpful for you. Talk to you soon. Bye.